Eagles talk. We are back. We are fired up. We haven't been here for two Eagles games, but we are going to cover the latest victory for the Eagles. They win against the Saints in a big victory. What do we have to say about it? What are some of our big takeaways from the game? We'll get at you right now. It's Eagles talk. Let's go.
You love the Eagles, let me get a hell yeah! You love the Philadelphia Eagles, let me get a hell yeah! Philadelphia!
Eagles Talk A2D Radio. We are brought to you by Baggio's Bread, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pie sandwiches, cutlets, and meatballs. Make sure you mention A2D Radio for 10% off your in-store purchase. We are live. It's Chucks, it's Brinks, and it's PY. Brinks is coming at you from South Carolina, Myrtle Beach.
Yes,
How's it
sir.
going? How's it going there?
It's going. It's
Yeah.
going. It's so cool that I can go to bed at whatever time. No alarm clock set for the entire week. It's pretty awesome.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. PY, how are you, bro?
I'm hanging in there.
Hanging as usual, right? And what are the
As
latest
usual.
sicknesses you've had the past 2 weeks that we haven't covered?
Asthma, and more asthma.
As always, asthma.
As
So
everyone knows at my dealership, I'm the asthmatic salesperson.
oh my god, I feel for
Use
you.
that. Use that, bro. Use that sympathy
do.
card.
I
Good.
do.
Good for you.
I
I'm
puff
proud
right
of you
in
for that,
front of
actually.
them.
I thought you were going to say, no, I don't do that.
No.
I'm proud of you.
This
for,
is my
hit-
crutch, baby. I pull this out
Yeah.
as often as I can.
I'm proud of you.
Right
Hit
in
below
front
that
of
belt.
customers.
I'm proud of you.
No
Respect
shame.
for PY.
None.
Oh my god,
for you.
the morals of salespeople, right? So we weren't here last week. We had some technical difficulties on the back end, but we are
Good.
back this week. And yeah, last week I wasn't really in the mood to talk any football. This week is a totally different story. So kind of
Nobody wants to see a grown man cry live on air.
Yeah, or not even cry. No one wants to see me throw my laptop across the room anyway. So
Actually, I want to see that.
we are back. we are back with you guys. Thank you for tuning in. We've got so much to cover because we haven't been on for 2 weeks, but we'll get right to it. Our poll question for today, and I think this is a good one. I really like this poll question I came up with. The Eagles win over the Saints will be a turning point to their 2024 season. Agree or disagree? PY, you know what? No, Brinks. I'm gonna go with you because you're on vacation, and I want you to give us some good vibes from South Carolina right now. What do you think? You agree or disagree to the poll?
What does that mean, a turning point? Nothing about yesterday changed my overall outlook of this team. It was a good win. Some good stuff happened and some not so good stuff happened, which I'm sure we're going to get into. But I think my whole narrative about this show is going to be this team started 10-1 last year, and major red flags were ignored by much of the fan base, and I'm not going to get fooled again. So, yes, they did some good things. For example, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, two monsters in the middle from Georgia, played fantastic yesterday. Great. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They put pressure on the quarterback because our edge rushers seem to have just no interest in doing that. But I've seen those monsters in the middle do that before, and then they go away for a month. So it's hard for me to get excited long term for that. And then that's my positive example from yesterday. Quinion Mitchell, yeah, you're covering the ball, but what was he doing on that pass that hit him in the face mask that should have been a pick six? This ain't Toledo, bro. You got to house that. At least pick it off. And then I'm sure we're going to get into the head coach, who's just a moron, and the quarterback who can't seem to take a sip of water out of a Gatorade cup without turning the football over. So yeah, I saw some good things today. It was a good win on the road, but like I watched a bunch of wins last year and ignored red flags last year. So like I am not ready to jump all in on this football team yet. I think they're going to win the East, which I predicted. I think they'll probably win a playoff game like I predicted, but I mean anything past that, I just didn't see before the Saints game and I don't see it after the Saints game. So
Okay.
I'm still in huge wait and see mode with this football team.
So through much of through what you said, I kind of I was leaning toward disagreeing, but then when you threw in the last part in terms of what your overall expectations are for the team, I think that's I was like, okay, that I can understand more. So I'll get into it when I answer the poll question. But
Like for
you
me to
framed
have
it
it
that
be
way.
a turning point, like okay, like this team's going, no doubt about it, after that win to the NFC title game. I don't feel like
Gotcha.
that.
Okay. If you frame
I
it
don't
that
feel like
way, I understand where you're going. Framing it with those expectations, I think I get it. It makes it more. I understand where you're coming from on your side. Py, what do you think?
So I do think it is a turning point because like I don't think we win this game last year. Like as well as we did last year, I think this is a game where there's no AJ. Devontae gets taken out. Britton Covey gets taken out. Mekhi Becton is out. Lane Johnson is out. This team would have folded. And sure, the head coach is a doofus. We know it. You know it. Brinks knows it. Les Bowen knows it. Everyone who watches this show knows it. He's a doofus. Like it just is what it is. And like, do they have to overcome him at times? Yeah, they do. But they have good coordinators who are setting things up the way they need to set up. Like they don't win this game last year because all those things would have stopped them. Like the defense is slowly starting to become what we had hoped. Like obviously the pass rush isn't there just yet, but this is why I love Fangio. Fangio goes out of his way to make adjustments and to do things differently. You know, we saw some 5-man fronts, which is really nice. Not to mention the fact that it wasn't working with Bryce Huff, so they reduced his snap count. Like last year, they probably would have played Bryce Huff the whole time. And look, I understand Jalen had the fumble, which that's inexcusable. Like I can't make excuses for that. The interception, I don't put too much on him because I think a lot of it has to do with Devontae. So we can get upset with him for being up and down over the last few weeks, but at the end of the day, like when you needed him to make plays in that fourth quarter and to come up huge, he did it. And he did it with nobody, with Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, and whatever the hell Johnny Wilson is. Like that's not an easy task. Like especially with your two most trusted playmakers out. And like the defense showed up huge. Like Jalen Carter was a monster. Jordan Davis was a wrecking machine. It was their best game against the run, which for a team that was 5 yards a carry their first two games, they averaged probably the most points in the NFL for their first two games. Like you couldn't ask more. Like this is not a game that you get to have the victory Monday last year. Like it just isn't. And while I think the head coach is an idiot, I think enough of the quarterback, I think enough of the coordinators, and I think enough of your best players to where if you can just minimize the turnovers a little bit and keep the defense playing the way they're playing, this could be a team that could go deep.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm going to also agree to the bull. And like I said, the way Brinks framed his point is understandable. The way I'm going to frame mine, though, is when you come off of last week's loss, that was a horrendous loss. Like that is shades of 2023 collapse. All right. When you see that loss, and I'm sure this came into all of our minds. Every single Eagles fan, every single Eagles analysis or analyst. What am I talking? Analysts out there are saying, that looked like the 2023 team that collapsed, didn't know how to win, how to close games, and just snatched defeat out from the jaws of victory. That was that. So you have all these question marks. You have question marks about the defense, the run defense, the pass rush that was non-existent. You have question marks about, is this offense going to stop turning the ball over? So there are things that creep in your mind where you're saying you can see this team kind of find there's a scenario where this team doesn't make the playoffs. That's what happens after that loss. And I know we all thought it, but that victory, that win, the way you won it, and PY made so many great points. The way they came about overcoming all the injuries. I mean, God, like no AJ Brown to start. You lose Devontae Smith in the fourth quarter where you're still trailing, right? You are still losing the game when Devontae Smith exits. They're out Lane Johnson in the first half. They're out. They're out.
Becton got hurt.
The right side of the line is out. You lose Britton Covey, who was
Covey's out.
You say what you was the one about Covey, but Covey was playing really well was stepping up as a wide receiver for us. You lose all of them, and you even lost Slay for the very end of the game. He had to come out, so you lose all that, but you still find a way to win. That is astronomically, and I will also include you found a way to win despite Nick Sirianni's horrible game management. That is, to me, the reason why I say that's a turning point to the 2024 season is because now you know this team has what it takes to fight back and actually come out with a win when it shouldn't have been a win. They know they can steal a win. Now, does this mean they're going to go undefeated the rest of the year? No. They're going to lose more games, but there's still a level of confidence now that you can instill into this team that you probably didn't have up until that week 3 victory. And so that's why I agree to the ball. I think there are a lot of positives where it calms a lot of your concerns going, before that win. And so I loved what they did in terms of just fighting through adversity. So that's something that was a big question mark going in to this season, and they answered it. We'll see what they can do here on out. If the defense can be consistent, in terms of Fangio's defense, doing what they did against the Saints. If the offense can stop turning the ball over, so on and so forth. But I think this has the potential to be for this season what that Brian Westbrook punt return against the Giants was for the 2003 Eagles. Like when things were just going bad, but that one game, that one victory, that one play really put confidence in the team moving forward. So we'll see. Again, it's a projection. It's your trying to predict what this game will be in a few weeks. And I understand that like it's hard to give a definitive answer, but that's what we'll come to. So let's get to
before we go to comments and left, like I would be more likely to change my opinion in a positive way as to my outlook for this team for the whole season if they go out and put a hurting on Tampa next week.
Gotcha. Okay. Now that you say that, I'll ask this: what if AJ and Devontae Smith are not available?
I don't think AJ's playing. They kind of been hinting that because they have Tampa, then a bye, then Cleveland, right?
Yes.
So it seems like they've been targeting AJ for a return for that game.
Yeah.
The whole time. Does that change? Because, I mean, Devontae Smith got knocked silly. And I don't know how there's not an outrage nationally with that.
Should be.
There should be.
He spit on him.
And then he spit on him to boot.
Yep.
But you could see throughout that whole game that they were dirty, bro. Like I don't mean to cut you off, but
no, you're fine. They were. You're right.
Yeah,
so I'm expecting it's going to be hard for them to I don't know. What's Mekhi Becton's deal? Britt Covey's out. So your top 3 receivers are out potentially next week. So that's tough. But if you overcome that adversity and beat, I know they lost yesterday, but I still think that's a decent team down there in Tampa.
Yeah.
But let's be
that
honest, like if you told yourself at the start of the season, you're 2-2 at the start of the season with you, the last two you're facing the Saints and you're facing the Bucks. Like, I think people will be okay.
Well, how many turnovers is Jalen going to have next week? Like, this is why I don't like the win-loss game at the beginning of the season. I know it's fun for the fans and us to like, but like,
we agree.
We're 2-2, but like, if we're 2-2 with all those injuries, like, yeah, going in, and then you get a bye at a perfect time, which we've been. I didn't like the week 5 bye, the early bye, but looks like that's going to work out pretty good for us.
Yep, it's going to work out for us.
So like, that's like, you got to like. I can't, like, it's all optics. It's all eye test. Like, it's all how I feel as opposed to, like, the stats and what happens. The quarterback.
Well, I mean, you could play the same game with the.
Yeah, let's get before you guys continue.
Go ahead.
Let's get to the chat, and then we'll bring Les in, and then we'll dive deeper into the game. But SJM says, I disagree to the poll. One game doesn't fix not kicking a 50-yard field goal, then attempting a 60. Sirianni's logic and real-time decisions are abhorrent. He also says, Hurts is Hurts, always ride with him. I could use way less turnovers. 27 turnovers in the last 19 games. 9 interceptions, 7 straight games dating back to last year. Got to tighten that up, period. Yeah, absolutely. And he says, Fangio's 5-man front was highly effective. Carter was a mastodon all day. Mitchell does have to convert those turnover opportunities. Despite that, he looks very good. Martian has been a little down on Hurts, but he does say this team found a way to lose a short win and found a way to win a short loss. Yep. SJM says, what's the alternative to Hurts? He's alluding to two-glove Kenny. Not to mention Jalen's got the $250 million bag, plus he is a winner thus far. And that is a very good point. He does, despite the turnovers, he has made some. There are several moments throughout his tenure here where he does come up big.
3-9 he is in his last 12 starts with 26 turnovers.
Martian says, all I know is Carson only lasted 2 years after his extension. Jalen's in the second year of his extension. SJM says,
comparing,
Jalen has to minimize turnovers more than just a little. Read my above post. Interesting point to Martian.
I disagree, because like, if you're looking at what Wentz was his 2 years compared to where we are with Hurts, it's not even a close discussion.
Yeah, I think when you look at how they were, Wentz just never looked the same. Whereas Hurts, you're still seeing the trajectory going up. There's still signs of there's still good signs there for Hurts. So let's bring Les in. We'll get back to the chat in a little bit. Les, how are you, my friend?
Great, fellas. How are you tonight?
We are doing all right. Really, really well. Let me bring up our poll question for you tonight. Yes. We were PY and I agreed, Brinks disagreed. So where are you? The Eagles win over the Saints will be a turning point to their 2024 season.
Well, can I just answer this next Monday night?
That's
sure. It's not a turning point yet. I mean, I hope it will be. That would be nice. It was a wonderful win in many respects. Certainly a deserved win. It could be a turning point from the standpoint of this time a week. Well, they were still playing this time a week ago. A week ago tomorrow, I was thinking they didn't have a defense that was going to get them even into the playoffs. So I've turned around on that. I mean, I don't know what the defense will do next week against Tampa, but clearly there's talent there. There's the potential to be a very good defense. Whether Jalen Carter plays like that, more than once in a while, I don't know. Whether the 5-man front works against different teams, the different concepts, I don't know that either. But I do think that they took a huge step defensively, because even that week 1 game, even though there weren't a lot of points scored, they gave up so many rushing yards. They weren't really good defensively. They tightened up in the red zone. And then week 2 was just a total disaster, 22 points in 24 minutes of possession time for Atlanta. I thought the defense was what brought back last year more than anything else to me was the way the defense played last Monday night. I don't think yesterday, the Eagles dominated that game.
Mm-hmm.
They almost didn't win it, largely because of Nick Sirianni.
Yes.
A little bit because of the early turnovers, but more because of Sirianni. They dominated that game on both lines of scrimmage all day, and they deserved to win the game. So that establishes something. I guess I'm saying yes, but it's a real qualified yes.
Yeah, it's a tough question. That's why I thought of it, because it's like you've got to kind of put your projection hat on. You're predicting, like, it's not like a certain. There's no hard evidence to say yes or no just yet, because we don't know what effect this win will be. But I don't know if you heard me before you came on. I think this has the potential to be what Ryan Westbrook's return against the Giants did for that.
Deep hole there, Chucks. How old were you then?
I was born in '86, so
okay.
Yeah, I was like in my 20s, I think, or if I remember correctly.
I think you would have been 17.
17, yeah, sorry.
My math skills.
Yeah.
But I covered that game, of course, and the difference is
I think I was.
The Eagles had no business winning that game. The Giants outplayed them up one side of the field and down the other. I believe that was the only touchdown the Eagles scored in that game.
Yes,
maybe.
yeah.
It was just pulling one out of your rear end and getting on the bus before you could be arrested. And then the season turned around after that. You're right.
Yeah.
But that was a weird time in the NFC East. The Eagles were very, very fortunate that year, I think. The Cowboys were just in hell back then. They were really
no quarterback,
not just not winning in the playoffs, but not winning at all. And the Giants and Commanders, Redskins back then weren't any good either, really. Washington thought it was good. They had hired Steve Spurrier. They really, they were going to be good, but nobody was any good. And the Eagles kind of got their act together, got over their hangover from that horrible loss to Tampa Bay in the previous NFC Championship game, and got back to the same point, only to do the same thing again. Yep. But anyway, that's a good point. That was a turnaround, an early season turnaround, and I think they did establish something yesterday defensively, certainly. And I was pretty harsh on Jalen Hurts during the game. I know Brink up there was beating on the Hurts drum. But after thinking, the first quarter was bad. Those 2 successive turnovers, you just can't have that. The first one really was Devontae Smith's fault.
Exactly. Thank you.
But that said, we've said that a lot over the years about turnovers for Wentz and for other quarterbacks. I mean, the bottom line is, in that situation, you have to be really, really, really mindful of what your history is and what you're trying to get past and what the ultimate goal is here. It's not to get 7 points instead of 3. It's to not throw a damn interception. You just have to be in that mindset. And they keep talking about, we'll learn from this. When will they learn from it?
You better now. Yeah, you better learn from it.
Definitely was Hurts' fault. It was ridiculous. You have to, and that is Wentzian, just refusing to take care of the ball.
Yeah.
But otherwise, Hurts then played 3 really good quarters after that, was what I started out to say. And he missed a couple, he didn't get a couple reads right, but nonetheless, he was incredibly accurate. He didn't throw any more picks or fumble the ball away again. And had his coach made better decisions, I think it would have been a comfortable win. He's got to stop doing that. And I just don't think Sirianni after the game. I don't know if you heard the press conference.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't
Oh,
do it.
God.
I haven't heard a
Some of
second of it. I
It
can't.
was, you got to hear it because he comes off as almost slightly unhinged, frankly.
Slightly.
The coaches, one of the biggest cliches in the NFL is never get too high, never get too low.
Mm-hmm.
But like a lot of, what was it Jimmy Buffett says, cliches are good ways to say what you mean and mean what you say. It's a cliche because it's true. And Nick, after winning that game, was just blubbering and, pointing his finger. And
He's very immature. He's very immature.
He was talking about his son's baseball coach, Coach Dan.
Yeah, I know.
Who's probably a wonderful man. Coach Dan, if you're probably my neighbor, if you're watching this, nothing against you, but his big thing was Coach Dan says after a big mistake, okay, now what? That it's how you react.
Yeah.
And to a point, that's true. It's certainly true for Little League baseball players. However,
the kids
for
are
professional athletes, maybe you need to emphasize not screwing up in the first place. And he was lumping adversity together, like everything that happened was adversity. To me, and if you follow me on social media, you've already heard this, but adversity is Lane Johnson and Mekhi Becton and Devontae and Covey, all that stuff. That's adversity.
Yeah.
Shooting yourself in the foot and then limping because you shot yourself in the foot is not adversity. It's not overcoming adversity if you limp to the finish line after shooting yourself in the foot. It's just you created a problem for yourself that you shouldn't have had to overcome. And that's, I don't think he sees the difference. I'm not sure that he sees the difference.
I think it's with Nick, and let me preface this. I think he is ultimately. I think he will be if they don't get to where they want to go, right, which is a deep playoff run.
Mm-hmm.
I think Nick is the biggest reason why they don't. I think he is the biggest concern of this team. So I will say I think that and I think we all agree. I think Nick is a very genuine and nice person. I think I think he means well, and he's really trying his absolute hardest to be that culture setter. And there are some things he says which is great, and I do like that he is willing to take so much accountability, because there are coaches who don't, they'll pass off everything and deflect blame. So I appreciate that stuff. I think with Nick, it's just that I don't know what happened, but after he decided to punt in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, all of his game management and just football sense and having a feel kind of just went out the window. And I do not know, he's spiraled ever since then. And if we're talking about Wentz, that is very Wentzian, where one thing goes wrong and now you're spiraling, right? Yeah. So I don't know what it is about Sirianni where he's just not, he doesn't have an appropriate feel for how to manage the game. And I wanted to see that really, really bad this season. So far he's failed. And I don't know. I don't know.
Failed would be that's a compliment to say he's failed. I mean, I have the sequence written down here on my phone, so and I assume the big polarizing situation was the before half tush push end around. You don't feel good.
Well, that's the one. I would have to say I didn't disagree with all of his going for it yesterday. It's unfortunate they didn't have the right plays, for the situations, but that's the one right there. Because he talked about that again. Go ahead.
They went timeout.
Yeah.
And then Nick has got all his bravado on the sidelines, in Jalen's face, pumping him up. They're setting up to do the tush push. And then, for whatever reason, that time, you shy away from a play that works 90% of the time to do something you've never done before, and you
I
cost
they
your
did
team.
do it once last
They
year.
did
I
it
think.
once last year, but
Did
it's
it
a
work?
different situation.
I don't recall that.
With Swift.
Yeah,
with
they
Swift.
did it at least twice
So-
last year.
So this is what I'm thinking. All right, and you guys
It's
can all see if you agree. I think Nick's mindset was that he wants points. He wanted points in that situation. He wanted a touchdown.
Yeah.
And because they called that last year with Swift and then it resulted in a touchdown, he figured that it would catch the Saints off guard again and result in a touchdown.
Yeah,
The issue that
probably
I have,
right.
the
Yeah.
issue that I have with that is, sure, that is the potential upside, but there's so much risk involved, so much risk, because if it doesn't work, you're giving up points, and
And
if
you've
it
already given the ball away twice deep in
exactly,
New Orleans territory, and you have no
Mhm.
points.
You have no points.
So-
And what if you pick up the fourth down, but you get stopped short of the
Yeah.
goal line?
Well, that's
You-
what I wanted to get. We need to stop right here. The type of play he called is less important than the fact that he thought, and he talked about this reluctantly in his press conference today. I don't know if anybody saw that. He made this big. Well, Elliott Shore Parks asked the first question, and it was a
Great.
general question about fourth downs. And I think Nick finds Elliott very annoying. And Nick gave this blanket answer about how from henceforth he's not going to really explain his thinking on fourth downs, which is ridiculous. He's just because he's always doing it because he thinks it's in the best interest of the team winning the game. Well, of course. I mean, what the hell else would? But then Jeff McClain asked the follow-up, and I'll give Jeff a lot of credit. He's got guts. He was like, "No, we're not going to just leave that there." He
I
was
like
like,
Jeff McClain. I don't know why he gets so much.
Because he's a. Are you? I'm not open that can of worms.
Les, continue. Go ahead.
Anyway, so Jeff says, well, the one that everybody's wondering about is the one right before the half. And finally, Nick wanted to get out of it. Yeah, he was like, I'm not going to touch. And Jeff kind of got him to admit that he thought he could run 2 more plays before kicking the field goal if he got the first down. Now there's 14 seconds left. You have one timeout that you're going to have to use when you make the first down with like 10 seconds left. And you're going to get your team, which is on the road in a loud dome, has made a number of mistakes in the game already, is going to perform like a precision instrument, and you're going to get 2 snaps and then have time to kick a field goal.
Yeah.
That is beyond ridiculous.
Yep.
That left me at a loss for words.
No.
How much do you think
it would
this
happen once in 100? If you ran that scenario 100 times, that might happen once.
Les, how much do you think this head coach and this coaching staff relies on analytics? It's based on.
But that wasn't analytic. The analytics would never tell you that. I'm sorry. I mean, they do, but they also ignore it. And he said that last week. He ignores it when he thinks he's, when his feel for the game tells him something else. And there were some of those things yesterday. Some of those decisions were analytics based, and some of them weren't. I don't think the 60-yard field goal. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I read where that was not the preferred outcome. That they were not telling him to go for that on.
Yeah, I don't know, and like it bothered like that scenario too. If we're gonna get into the weeds of that, like on third down, why wouldn't you just run it? Because you're the whole mindset, the whole advantage of this offense
on the 60-yard field goal thing. Why wouldn't you get him closer?
Whole mindset is we play 4 downs. If we get into 3rd and short or 4th and short, we are going to just brotherly shove it, right? So the whole thing is, okay, on 3rd and like medium, we're gonna run it to get into that 4th and short. Why didn't you just run it there? Like I was looking at it, and in that situation, you just come off a huge Dallas Goedert play, 30-yard play, and you're up by only 1 point, right? You need to milk the clock and you need to get into the end zone to have a good cushion. You are in that situation and it's third and I forget what the distance is. But I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, they're probably going to run it because they want to be able to get into fourth and manageable to go for it because they're not going to kick a field goal here. But they pass it. And I'm just like, what? Like, this is what I'm talking about is there's no consistency in what your identity and feel for the game is. And like, have consistency. So, like, and I said this last week, I would much rather you be Dan Campbell because the team and Dan Campbell knows they're just going for it all the time.
Yeah.
Right? They're hell or high water. That's their identity. They know. So, like, there's no hesitation. There's no confusion. But with Nick, there is, like,
well, maybe part of the problem here is that maybe Kellen Moore is calling the third down play and then Nick's making the decision to go for it. I mean, if
you're right. You could be right.
Yeah, maybe Kellen Moore isn't thinking in terms of setting up a field goal. Maybe he's trying to pick up the first down on third down and using what he thinks is best for that. And it hasn't occurred to him that they might try to kick a really long field goal.
Like
we're still pretty early in this partnership, and I see some decisions that you kind of shake your head at. Like, why would you run that play right then? And I don't know how well. I think Moore is doing some good things with the motion and, with Barkley and so forth. But there are times when you wonder about the feel and who's doing what. And Nick even acknowledged today that there are times when he calls plays. He said he kind of minimized it, but I'm a little curious about that.
We still don't know like what he does. It's like he's the CEO coach, but he's not communicating with his coordinators. He's calling plays sometimes. So it sounds like Nick's trying to paint this picture because I'm starting to smell a weasel here as we move through this show. And the weasel is Nick Sirianni. It sounds like he wants to take the credit for everything that works and then kind of play these word salad games when things don't work out, which that makes me not like him even more.
He did take ownership to the fourth down call. He did
say he said, just blame me. I'm the head coach.
Yeah, he said that was on him.
But when you won't explain your thinking, maybe the blame me, a little bit of the shine comes off of that because you're not really engaging. You're just, blame me. Okay, but you're not really, it's kind of a passive approach to taking blame. You're not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally hear you. Shout out to Brian Pumper for the super chat. Brian says,
"Yep,
he reflects blame on a loss, but takes ownership in the win, and don't let that QB off the hook. 26 turnovers in 20 games is Madden."
Yeah.
Brian. I hear you. And now, let's. I do want to steer. Unless you guys have final thoughts, I do want to steer it kind of positive and give a shout out to all the.
We just have to apologize. We had the last time we were on, we had a poll question about Jalen Hurts, about I forget exactly what it was, but like, are you encouraged, discouraged? It was something like that after the Green Bay game.
Yes.
Me and Chucks and I, PY, I forget, you were here. I'm sure you haven't missed the show
encouraged.
yet. But we all poo-pooed it, and Les was like, hey, like, I'm still seeing all the same stuff that I've seen last year that were a problem. And you were 1,000% right. So
well,
my radar is
I'm actually higher on him than I was after that game because at least in the game last week, he showed us that he could still do it with his feet when he had to. Before that, I was starting to worry that he had just put that on the shelf and was never going to bring it out again. The real, not just little bits of running, but the running for 20 yards. Last week he showed us he could still do that. Last week in that loss to Atlanta, he actually didn't turn the ball over until the final play, desperation play. And I don't blame him as much as some. He got hit as he threw. He couldn't step into it.
There's absolutely no reason to huck
the
it down the field like that with a timeout.
The secret to not having an interception like that is to have your defense not give up
Yeah.
touchdown in 65 seconds
Yes.
and put you in a
Very
desperate situation. Quarterbacks who are continuously in desperate situations do throw interceptions, no matter how good they are.
Yeah.
So last week, to me, Hurts was fine.
Yep.
This game, he was less fine because of the 2 early turnovers.
Yeah.
After that, I thought he played really well. He's not, Mahomes. He's not Aaron Rodgers, and he's not going to be. I mean, if you're going to win Super Bowls with Jalen Hurts, it's going to be like when the Steelers won it with Ben Roethlisberger or, one of the Mannings. I mean, you don't have to be one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the league to win a Super Bowl. You have to be one of the top 10.
Nope.
And probably closer to top 5. But, he's not. People keep saying, why isn't he this and why isn't he's not that guy. I mean, I think he raised a little bit of false hope the Super Bowl year. I think things went really well for them.
Mhm.
And, he's probably not that guy. But I think he's still pretty good if he can stop turning the ball over.
Yeah, I think it's what I'm continued to be encouraged of despite the turnovers, and I do not want to everyone listening in the chat. I'm not making excuses for him. He has to stop the turnovers. He has to stop. Just stop the turnovers. So that making that clear. What I am still encouraged of is, again, there are things that you don't. The average, and this is not a shot at anyone, but the average fan, when they're looking at it, they don't notice the little things like Jalen calling out protections, Jalen spotting who the blitzer is, Jalen knowing, okay, now this.
He set up that play to Goddard. He
exactly.
got
So
that was a checkout.
The little things pre-snap that he never did in years prior, he's picking it up really well, and he's managing the game the way it's supposed to. Like the fact that he finished the game the way he did after the turnovers. I mean, you look at the numbers, the efficiency is there, and you look
70%.
at his passing chart all over the field, even a few shots in the middle of the field. Like he is managing and doing what the quarterback is supposed to do, especially without your top 2 wide receivers in the game. So to me,
that's impressive.
Encouraging. To me, that's what's encouraging is that he's doing things that he has never done before in terms of being an actual pocket QB and looking at and dissecting defenses pre-snap to enhance his game to the next level. So I think that's what it's about, like half glass empty, half glass full. We'll see what path and trajectory him and this offense takes the rest of the year. But I think there are positives and negatives to take so far from him. So we shall definitely see.
I don't really think there's like obviously like there's some good, there's some bad, like you were saying, but like I don't think there's really been any quarterback this year that's like lit the world on fire where you're like, oh my god, that guy's the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah,
like CJ Stroud is down, like all the hot young quarterbacks that you expect it to be like gangbusters right now, they're not there. Sam Darnold is the league MVP as of right now.
Yeah, I
you understand how bit crazy that is? Imagine if I told you at the start of this, for the first 3 weeks of the season, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, who I love, and Sam Darnold,
and probably
Baker
Josh
Mayfield,
Allen, who was like blowing the lid off tonight.
So I would throw. I actually don't. I love your Sam Darnold pick, but to go on a tangent, I actually would say Geno Smith. If you watch Geno Smith has
Geno's been good. Same with Derek Carr's the same. He's in the same limelight where, like, if you told me those guys were like MVP candidates the first 3 weeks and were the best quarterbacks to start the season, I would never believe you.
Yeah. And we are just 3 weeks in. I mean, it seems like a lot, but it isn't a lot. As we remember from last season, it isn't a lot.
Yep. 2 questions for you from Martian, Les, before you get going. The second one I definitely want to put in my voice too, but he does ask, which we kind of did get to and address, is what is really up for Jalen from your vantage point?
I think he's trying to make plays with his arm as well as his feet, maybe more than he did a few years ago. On that interception to Devontae, he just thinks Devontae's going to cut in front of Punny Badger. Like I said, it's a reasonable assumption, and it's really Devontae's fault. But in that situation, given who you're throwing at, you might want to think, you would want to think twice about what you're doing. And I don't think Jalen is at that point where he really thinks twice. I think he sees a chance to score a touchdown, and he wants to take that chance. Maybe a couple years ago, he would have pulled that ball down and run, but now he thinks he can do that because he and Devontae have, a pretty good thing going, and he couldn't do it because Devontae screwed it up. And the fumble, I have no idea why you run like that. That was Wentzian in the lack of sense of people around you. You're standing back there forever, which is the one thing he still does that I'm really not crazy about. If you're going to stand back there forever, you better find somebody. I don't know a lot of I've never covered a quarterback who could stand back there for more than 5 seconds and not find a receiver somewhere. I don't know whether the receivers are really crap at scramble drill or what the problem is. But when you do take off, you've got to be cognizant of the fact that you've been back there forever. Guys are losing their blocks. Rushers are coming free. You're not just running around in the open field with the ball in one hand. Dear God, especially when you just turned the ball over on the previous set of downs.
Yeah.
So Martian wants to know if I know what's up. No, I don't.
I do
think he played very, very well after that ridiculous display.
I wanted to elaborate that interception. Not only should Smitty have flattened that route more, to at least cause it to be an incomplete pass instead of an interception, but if you look, that was the same route concept that they scored a touchdown on the week prior. So if you look at it from the alternate view, like Hurts actually throws it with perfect timing. So the ball's where it's supposed to be, and that's a timing throw. That's an anticipation throw. So you're expecting okay, this is my drop, and I need to get it out at this time, which he does. I think that not only Smitty ran a little bit of an incorrect route, but I think at some points we kind of just got to give credit to the defenders too.
Honey Badger's
heads up play that is a really heads up play by Tyrann Mathieu that not a lot of safeties can make and anticipate. So that's how I saw the interception. Yeah. And then his last question was, and I do want to chime in after you, Les. He's asking, why can't this team run the RPO correctly anymore?
X and O's are not my strong suit, but I think everybody knows now what they do, and everybody has dissected it from 12 different angles. And I think they're showing them things that they've changed the equation on them, at what he's seeing when he's looking. It used to be there was one guy, and if the guy was committing to the running back, then he would keep it. And if the guy wasn't committing, he would hand it off or something. Now, I don't think he's getting a clear picture, from the defense as to what's going to happen. And he's making the wrong – it's like you're talking about Nick and the situational stuff. I think Jalen's making the wrong decision a lot of times.
Yes.
And the blocking, frankly, doesn't look crisp either. There was one in maybe last week's game where he got taken down behind the line of scrimmage very easily. But if he'd have handed it off, Barkley would have lost 4 yards too. There was no hole anywhere. I don't know. I guess the thing is I don't know, but I don't like I think they need to switch up how they do it somehow, because I think teams are all over it. Like you're looking for a pitch in a certain zone. I think teams are they have that RPO dialed at this point.
Yeah. So to give my 2 cents, there's two elements of this, and one, the RPO, it's complicated from an offensive line standpoint, and Jason Kelsey on Twitter went deep into this, and If you remember last week against the Falcons, the offensive line got so many illegal
Downfield.
penalties because there's a certain way you have to approach that, which is tough because you don't know if you're on the side that is run blocking, you have to get up, you have to get up, but you don't know if they're keeping if it's going to be a keeper or if they're going to give it, if the quarterback's going to give it to the running back. So it's tough. It's do if you don't, damned if you do, damned if you don't. So it's difficult. And if you look back on what Kelsey's tweet was, he explains it very well. But with the RPOs, it's just like it's complicated because you have to in a split second know what your read is, and then know from the second level defenders if they're keying off it what route concept's going to free up from those second level defenders. Now from the RPOs, there's also the zone read that's not working. The reason why the zone read's not working is a lot of people in the chat alluded to. Defenses have caught on. They know now when they face Jalen, they're going to scrape that second level defender. So they're going to have that read defender crash, and then that second level defender is going to scrape over. He
Replace
has
them. Yeah.
So they know that's their approach. So there's nothing you can do there for to really get open anymore. I have said past few weeks now, just scrap the RPOs for the time being and the zone reads. Just scrap it. It's not. There's very little reward for the risk right now that you're taking, and I think that if you can still design runs for Jalen that aren't zone reads. Yep. You can.
Oh yeah.
Look at what they did against the Falcons. When you have stuff that is going downhill,
north-south, quarterback draw,
QB draw, quarterback power. If you call those at opportune times, he can still be effective because you're not asking him to start off lateral. He's not running horizontal to the line of scrimmage. Get him going downhill so he can use his momentum and power to be able to elude defenders and break off tackles. So that's the key here. I don't think they're working because schematically it just doesn't make sense anymore. And the whole team from quarterback to running back to offensive line, they're just not executing the RPOs the way that they should be, which is no knock. It's a hard concept. There's a reason why Nick Foles was so good at it because he just knew when to give and when to keep. So that's my 2 cents.
That's well said. Yes.
Yep.
Very good.
Yes. Thank you so much again.
Well, thank you guys. It's good to see everybody.
Always good to have you. We will be back next week, hopefully after another Eagles win.
That'd be great.
Then, I'll see you on Twitter as usual.
Yeah.
But other than that, we'll see you next week again, Les.
Thanks again, guys. Have a good week.
Bye, Les.
See you, Les. That is the great Les Bowen. Bowen on the Birds, and is brought to us by Basio's Bread, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. 10% off your in-store purchase. Guys, just a quick update. The Commanders are beating the Bengals. The Bengals are in serious trouble. They're in serious trouble. Oh, my God.
Speaking of overrated white boys.
Oh, my God. They're in trouble. Oh, Austin.
0-3. 0-3 is tough.
That is tough.
0-2, and then you get a win. You'll probably be okay if you have a good team. But 0-3, that's not good.
Yeah.
I smell the rat in Cincinnati. I smell the rat in Cincinnati from our preseason.
You were right. Yeah, you called it. Yeah, the vibes are just off. I want to, like I alluded to earlier, I don't want to end the show because we have several minutes left, and we can go even a little bit longer than an hour if we want to. There are positives to take away from this win, guys. So I want each of us. Riggs, I'll start with you. Well, you actually talked about the Georgia guys and how they played lights out.
Let's go out and do it again next week. We need to start establishing someone on this defensive front needs to consistently step up. More than one guy. Brandon Graham played I forget 60% of the snaps yesterday because Bryce Huff can't do it and Josh Sweat isn't doing anything. So
Josh Sweat
was one of their best pass rushers on Sunday.
Josh Sweat played really well.
Well, then him too. Put him in with the Jordan. Do it again.
Yeah. Yep.
So something that's come under the radar is while it's not shown on the stat sheet or anything, Nolan Smith played a big part in their win on Sunday.
He did. Nolan Smith.
He was all over the field. They reduced Bryce Huff's snap count, and they gave him more plays.
Yeah.
And even Fangio has come out and said, he's like, Nolan is better than what he was last year. He's shown me more than what I saw on tape last year. Even if it's not flashing on the stat sheet just yet, he's getting there. He's getting close.
He's getting there, which is good. I was pleased with his performance against the Saints, so it's a good sign. The only player that had a bad game on the defense was Bryce Huff. That's really it, and
that's why he's 0.
We don't have to elaborate more on that. We already know he's got to be better. Plain and simple. He's got to be better. It's starting to get into real concerning territory, so we all agree on that. But shout out to the D-line. They played lights out. You could argue they were the real MVPs of that game. That game was like we don't win without that defensive line. So
them and the linebackers.
Linebackers, that's what I was going to allude to next. Linebackers, so good. Nakobe Dean has his lapses in coverage. That's going to be just the reality of it. But going downhill, Nakobe Dean is so good. He is so good. And then Zach Bond.
Extension.
Zach Bond being like a chess piece in that defense was chef's kiss. Like, to me, the biggest change was Fangio doing what I had said they should be doing at halftime against the Falcons. He changed that front to an odd man front, and then they were a lot more sound in their techniques they were running, and they were doing a lot. They were doing a lot of smart stunts with their defensive tackles, but that were more sound against the run. So like we criticized Nick Sirianni for a horrible coaching job. We need to do the opposite for Vic Fangio. That was like as good of a defensive coaching job that we could see in like a while. So yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome to see. And then of course, like I was saying this even after last week, the secondary does not concern me. Like they're not perfect. They're still learning. They still have some coverage lapses, but overall big picture, I am not concerned about the secondary. I think the secondary has played pretty well for 3 weeks in, and there are flashes of like, oh my God, the secondary is going to be really good. So, yeah, I think the defense deserves so much credit, so much credit for
kind of buried the lead a little bit here, fellas, because the MVP of the NFL is not a quarterback; it's a running back, and his name's Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley. Leading rusher of the NFL so far, guys.
I mean, look, he had 2 touchdowns yesterday. They won by 3. Mm-hmm. He had 3 touchdowns against Green Bay. They won by, 4 or 5? 5, I think.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
It was 34-29, so what's that, 5 points?
5 points, yeah.
And then did he score against Atlanta? I think he scored against Atlanta, too.
He scored against Atlanta, yeah.
So he's got –
No, he had one called back.
Oh, he had it called back.
Yeah, he had it called back, and then
Jalen. So he's got 5 touchdowns.
5 tutties in 3 games with all these quarterbacks not pulling their weight.
Yeah.
Also, just to kind of show you, while like Saquon is amazing, and this just kind of sucks, DeAndre Swift is cheeks right now.
Well, because the offensive
it's not. I mean, Chuck's has said it 50,000 times. Like it's not a comparison.
Like Saquon, that kind of just shows you, like Saquon is just like he is so next level. Like he's a 3-dimensional chess piece. Like it's not even like a normal chess piece. He's that next dimension above.
Yeah, that's why I said. That's why I said it.
Bahamas. He gets private jet, Bahamas, whatever he wants on that bye week, because I think he's going to touch the ball a lot against Tampa. And he's going to have to.
He's going to have to. Absolutely, he's going to have to. Like again, this is why
Smith, Johnny
Wilson, all these people, all these fans who were saying when we had Miles and when we had
cooked.
Just let me talk. Well, all them saying like we ran the ball well with those two. Like, why do we need to pay a running back like Saquon? This is why. Because having an actual elite running back makes a difference. They're elite for a reason. And I just get tired of people saying, oh, elite running backs don't matter just because they're running backs. Like, no. if you're an elite player, you have a real impact on the game. That's why you're elite. So I love the start that Saquon has had. He's the MVP of the Eagles so far, no doubt. And
But is he a power back?
absolutely he is. If the league were actually giving MVP awards to non-quarterbacks still, which they aren't, but if they still did, Saquon Barkley would be MVP. But he's the front runner for Offensive Player of the Year. So I'll cash in on that.
Who ended up winning it? Who ended up winning it last year?
It wasn't CMC,
Was
even
it?
though it should have been. Yeah. NFL 2023 MVP. It was Lamar Jackson. What do I think? Yeah, Lamar Jackson. Which is fine. Like he earned it too. But if I were to objectively pick between Lamar Jackson and CMC,
it should have been CMC.
Yep. But they're gonna give the nod to a quarterback. It's a quarterback award now, unfortunately. So yeah, it is.
Yeah, someone's got to be like super extraordinarily special, and like maybe the voters will realize that they've messed up really, really bad last year.
No, they won't.
Well, I win like $8,000. I win like $8,000 on DraftKings if Saquon Barkley gets MVP because of that reason. So, like,
I would love that. I would love for that to happen to you. I don't see it.
Chucks would rip his shirt open during the show. Like that's how jazzed he would be. Like he's Hulk Hogan.
I went to South Carolina. I was at the airport on Friday. I got on an airplane to come to South Carolina, and the trip to New Orleans was right next to me. So I was at Chickies and Pete's, drinking beers, doing Eagles chants the whole way. I put in a same game parlay, and it hit. I'm hot.
Oh, no.
Won $900.
Nice.
Where were these bets in the group chat? These were not distributed.
You can't do that. They'll never hit if I do that. Never.
That's not true. You're
so
downplaying it.
It's so true.
So the other guy, of course, we have to give credit to was Dallas Goedert. They finally started using him. Thank God, because they had to out of necessity. Big ups to Dallas Goedert. Like
170 yards.
And that one-handed grab on the 30-yard gain. Oh my God. So good. So good. And finally, last but not least, respect to freaking Fred Johnson and Tyler Steed.
Oh man.
For them to come in and play the way that they did is unbelievably awesome. Fantastic job. Both of them in such a tough spot. Like I'm so happy for them. I'm proud of them. And it gives me confidence that if they were to be called into action again, like we'll be okay. You know what I mean? So like that is a phenomenal job by Stoutland coaching these guys and by Fred Johnson and Tyler Steen in relief duty. So awesome job. Was there anyone else that deserves game balls that I forgot that you guys wanted to mention?
BG.
Oh yeah, BG. Of course, we talked about the
like game wrecker. Once again, you need a stop. BG's got it. We need some run support. BG's got it. Like it's between him and Zach Bond. Like Bond was all over the place. Like when you need a play, he's there. Like when you need that sack, he's there. When you need that hard hit on the edge, Zach Bond is there. And anytime I see a white guy hit anything, I'm like, oh, Zach Bond just messed your up.
We need to get Jake Elliott some work too.
Yeah, we do.
He doesn't even kick the ball. He just stands there the whole game. The poor guy. He's got the highest paid kicker. He doesn't kick the ball off with the new rules anymore. I guess it's our punter, number 10.
Yeah.
And then every time he's in field goal range, Nick Sirianni just makes up some stupid reason not to use him and calls some dumb play and gives me a heart attack.
Yeah.
And he deserves to be fired. He deserves to be fired because he's an idiot. Only guy get fired twice for the same loser. You don't deserve to coach in the NFL if that's your thought process. I'm willing to die over Press Taylor.
I know you are.
Bill Lazor too. Wasn't he a Bill Lazor guy too?
Bill Lazor, yeah.
Did he stand on a hill for him too?
Any week 3 reactions to the games that you want to get you want to mention before we head out?
You still done, boys?
Oh, that was funny. They're 1-2 and they're spiraling. Yeah,
How's that elite defense looking there, fellas?
Yeah,
that
but
was
the Thursday they're playing the Giants on Thursday night.
Yeah,
They're going to
no
absolutely
problem.
destroy the Giants.
Yeah,
Here we go.
They usually do.
I picked the Colts to make the playoffs, and Anthony Richardson kind of stinks.
Anthony Richardson's not looking good so far. He's not looking as good as I expected, but it's still early. It's
week 3.
Yeah, Don. Caleb Williams O-line trying to get him killed. Yeah, like that O-line is horrendous. Caleb Williams did look better this week. Like every week he's looked better and better. So he had a couple interceptions, but he also threw his first touchdown, and he was dealing all over against the Colts. So he's looking better and better. The Seahawks 3-0. Again, I told you.
Vikings are 3-0. Both those are surprises.
Good stuff. Trying to think, like the Bengals again. I'm gonna watch the rest of this game, but the Bengals are
life, liberty, and stop playing for the Panthers, and you're good at football.
The Panthers. Oh my God, Bryce Young. So let's let this be the last topic before we head out. All right.
The red rifle.
What is your? I'll give my opinion, but I think the decision to sit Bryce Young, and this is easy to say after the fact, after they won, but even before the games on Sunday, I thought that the decision to sit Bryce Young was the right one. Even for Bryce Young, I think that he was doing so bad, and I'm not saying that it's all on him because he was put onto a horrible team, horrible situation last year, and his confidence got shot. So I'm not blaming only him, but in terms of what he's put on film and he's put out, how he's performed so far, 2 games into the season, there has been no improvement. You could argue he's looked worse. And I think to save him from himself, the right decision was to sit him so that he can step back, take a breather, take a little bit to regroup, and then rebuild that confidence slowly. Like, I thought it was the best. And then from the Panthers side of things, like you've got to get competent QB play out there because the rest of the roster is not going to deal with it for 17 games. And we saw like what difference it makes with Sam Darnold, not Sam Darnold, Andy Dalton, who's far from one of the top QBs in the league, obviously, but he's a capable veteran. And you get a capable veteran in there, you have something to work with. So I thought it was absolutely the right move. There were people that disagreed. They thought it wasn't the right move, but I think it is the right move for Bryce Young. I hope that he still finds a way to rebound. And
he won't do it in Carolina. I'll say that right now.
That's very possible. That's very, very possible. It won't be in Carolina.
He just doesn't look like a professional quarterback. He looks like one of these Alabama, had everything perfect for his whole college career and looked really good, and now is coming to the pros where he's got to carry a franchise and carry a team, and I don't think he can do it.
Yeah.
He's small. He doesn't have a cannon. He's okay on the run. I wouldn't call him like Jalen's a way better athlete than him. Like Lamar, like he's no Lamar. He's no Jalen. Like athletically, like
he's not Daniels or he's not an athletic standout. So I hear you. Yeah. Anything else, guys, before we head out?
No, I'm good.
Good. All right. So, to all those listening in, thank you once again. Tune in to Eagles Talk. Great win. Be happy about it. In a few days, we move on to Tampa Bay, and that's going to be a big game. We got to see who's healthy for it. But regardless, I'm pretty sure we all agree that Saquon has to be the focal point of the offense, and I think a win is absolutely absolutely possible if Nick doesn't get in the way. Nick, just don't be stupid, please, and just let Kellen Moore do his job, and we'll be okay. We'll be okay. But I'm excited. Make sure you catch the rest of the A2D shows the rest of the week coming up, and catch us same time next week. Thank you again The Bazio is red. Make sure you mention A2D Radio for 10% off your in-store purchase. For myself, for Brinks, for PY, and the rest of us at A2D Radio, thank you. Go Birds, and we'll see you next week. Peace.